VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker. We are chilling with the May 9th edition. We've got, 33 days until mandatory minicamp. And that's when some of this stuff will start to crystallize, the storylines for the roster battles. Yesterday we chatted, 15, 20 minutes about some of the camp battles that are on the way. You can pull that episode if you want to get through some of those and figure out, who's going to get what spot, who are the contenders. And today I want to talk about the three long-term questions facing these Vikings as a result of the offseason, free agency, the draft, in accordance with some of their actions or lack thereof. So that's on the docket today, and this will be the final show of the week because my son and I leave tonight to go to San Francisco for the Lakers and Warriors Game 5. So I will be off until next Monday. Who knows what the Vikings will have done since then, if anything, to chat about, but I will assuredly be that guy to talk to you about it on Monday. So let's get into these. There's only three things to chat about. The show might be a little brief, so forgive me. And I think I'll rank these in order of importance, in my opinion. So the first large, long-term question facing the Vikings is probably at the forefront of your brain. It involves the contract extension of Justin Jefferson and then TJ Hawkinson. I'm going to lump those in together for one simple reason. So the reason that this isn't real like a panicky thing is because everybody expects the Jefferson deal especially, and then probably the Hawkinson extension to get done because Kwesi traded what looked like a second-round pick. What it really was a pick swap and 3 rounds worth of draft capital for one of the best tight ends in football. What would we say safely? A top 5 tight end? Felt like top 3 on some of those weeks. So you got one of the best tight ends in the sport who takes a lot of pressure off the passing game, or Jefferson in particular, and gives Kirk Cousins, or the next guy, a safety blanket in the middle of the field. So the reason that I even have this included is because we have nibbled at the topic of the Jefferson extension. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah called it champagne problems. I think that was back in January or February when somebody says, when's this Jefferson deal going to get done? And he called it champagne problems, meaning it's a good problem to have, that we're going to have to pay this guy a bunch of money, and they're going to do it. I guess the only holdup would be if Jefferson changed his mind and doesn't want to work here, but he's never said anything of the ilk whatsoever. So he's going to remain with the Vikings. But the reason that I have this on here is indeed, it is a long-term question that does have to be answered because it hasn't happened yet. You've seen some of the other deals transpire around the league. When is Jefferson's going to take place? When is Hawkinson's going to take place? So there is a world where the Vikings could be fine and dandy without Jefferson or Hawkinson. We don't want to live in that, but they're going to get paid substantially, and it actually has to happen here. It's at the forefront of the agenda to lock down your 2 playmakers. And what this does, or will do, is it locks in 2 young commodities to the Vikings for the next 4 to 5 years. I'm not exactly sure how long the Hawkinson deal would be. Maybe 3 to 4 years if they kind of take a dinker deal. I expect Jefferson's to hopefully be 4 or 5. I guess there's a possibility that these are 3 years, but in all likelihood they're going to be in the 4 and 5 year range. So it'll be glorious to get those done because it solidifies. And Christian Darrisaw will be next year, and Brian O'Neill is already locked in for, is it 3 more seasons? 3 or 4 more seasons. I can't remember when that deal kicked in from his 2020 extension. Probably 3 more seasons. So you're going to have this offensive nucleus, no matter who's under center. We know Cousins is going to be 35. That's why I'm even talking about the next guy. Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Christian Darrisaw, and Brian O'Neill. And that's glorious. That is a nucleus. And you got Addison for cheap, almost for free by NFL standards for the next 5 years. So go down the line. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill. 5 offensive magnets in the house for the next 5 years. And that's why it's so important. That's why it's a long-term question facing the Vikings is, when do they actually do it? When does the pen get put to paper? When does Jefferson get his monstrous contract? And then I'm guessing Hawkinson's will probably be nibbling at top 3 tight end money, so at 16, 17 million per year. And then Jefferson's probably will be 30 to 35 million per year. And that's just the way it goes. For when you have these dudes that tabulate all of these yards and touchdowns, you got to pay them. So It's not really a suspenseful long-term question. It's a prudent or a pragmatic one that asks, yeah, it's great that they're up for extensions, but, when are we going to do this, guys and gals? Come on, fellas, let's put the pen to paper and get this accomplished. So that would be on the list of 3. That'd be number 3, building up to the grand climax, and I'm pretty sure you'll know what it is if you follow this team close enough. But number 2, very important to me. I've said on this show, a dozen times that in terms of how I enjoy analyzing football or even watching it on Sundays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays is through a defense-first lens. That's why I enjoyed the Mike Zimmer era until it got stale. I love defense. I will always love defense. And my long-term question in this space right now is, what happens if Brian Flores is a one and done? And it's a very important question because, let me set the table. So during the Mike Zimmer era, we all had grievance, we all had beef that, the offensive coordinator, that guy got promoted, Kevin Stefanski, that guy got fired, John DeFilippo, that guy retired, Gary Kubiak. So you had constant musical chairs at offensive coordinator. And it stunk. There was never any continuity. Thankfully, even though they didn't win a Super Bowl, the Vikings were relatively successful during the Zimmer era, even amidst changing the offense all the damn time, every year, in fact. I forgot to mention Clint Kubiak in there. But on the defense side of the ball, it was always going to be okay because Mike Zimmer was there and he had some figurehead as the defensive coordinator, at least in title, whether it was George Edwards, Adam Zimmer, RIP, or Andre Patterson had the title for co-defensive coordinator for 2 years. So it never really mattered what happened on defense because Zimmer was always there. That's what the Vikings have with Kevin O'Connell on offense right now. So if Wes Phillips takes a head coaching job next year or takes a offensive coordinator job where he can call plays, who cares? You got Kevin O'Connell. He's a former quarterback. Was brought in by the Vikings to be the guy on offense no matter who is his offensive coordinator. But you're going to have an inverse, a flip of the script from the Zimmer era, constantly replacing offensive coordinators. That could be the way it goes for defensive coordinators. Out of the gate, year 1, you hire Ed Donatel, who sounded absolutely fabulous at his first press conference about 14 months ago. Run through the wall stuff. He sounded like he knew what he was doing. 2022 arrived. The defense never really figured it out. It was exposed against the Giants, and Ed Donatel doesn't work here anymore. Now we scoured the defensive coordinator market and found Brian Flores, a hire that everybody celebrated because the guy is awesome. He has a track record. He's Belichickian. Everyone is pumped about Brian Flores being the defensive coordinator. However, the guy should be a head coach. He was railroaded out of Miami. He's suing the league. He's probably going to be a head coach before too long. So if that is next year at this time, we're doing the show, Brian Flores is the coach of the blah, blah, blahs. Then what? Are we going to keep doing this every year like we did during the Zimmer era where, all right, well, we got an offense first head coach, that's great, but we have to switch the defense every year because they're hot commodities. They're either getting promoted, Donatel's case getting fired. If they hire an old guy next year, perhaps he'll retire like Gary Kubiak. You have the same dynamic, the same dichotomy as the defense first coach in Zimmer, but it's flipped to Kevin O'Connell in offense. So when I say the long-term question is, they have to know this. I'm not the only person on some YouTube show that's thinking this far in advance, is that there is a very likely scenario that when January or February rolls around, Brian Flores is interviewing for a head coaching job, and he should get one. And let's assume that the Vikings go from 27th in DVOA last year, that's what it was, and maybe they're up to 15th or 14th in 2023. Well, first of all, the sky would be the limit for the Vikings in terms of wins and losses. If they had a defense that didn't look moronic, then, maybe they can get to the NFC Championship. Maybe they can finally win a Super Bowl. But then what if Flores bolts for a team with a head coach opening? Just going to do this every year, or is there some guy that they can identify on Flores' staff right now and say, John, Jake, Trevor, whatever his name's going to be, we're grooming you for in case Flores bolts. I don't know if they can say that to him to his face without feeling awkward, But let's hope that they have a contingency plan, a defensive coordinator that knows the system, assuming that it's decent in 2023, because you don't want to do this every year where you're bringing in a new defense and, and Harrison Smith's probably going to retire next year or the year after that. And you don't want to have an implant of something new every year. Continuity should be king. So you're probably not going to get oodles of continuity with Flores because he's such a damn good coach. He's going to get a head coaching job. I hope they've identified a contingency plan for this long-term question that says, what do we do in the event that we have musical chairs as a defensive coordinator? We know they don't know about it because they didn't work here, Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, but we know how it feels in terms of offensive coordinators. Well, we're probably going to see the same for defensive coordinators. Let's hope that there's a system in place where they have identified an heir apparent so that when Flores is hired by Team X next February, well, Assistant B or linebacker coach A can slide in and the defense doesn't have to be fundamentally changed. It can have some semblance of continuity. All right, number one, you already know what this is QB1. So Kirk Cousins is 34 years old. He'll turn 35 in August, and he'll enter his age 35 season. Normally, players don't get a whole lot better after this age. We always point to the examples of Aaron Rodgers winning MVPs in 2020 and 2021. Good for him. They don't usually do that. People don't usually play to age 45 like Brady did. So when we point to, or like LeBron, the guy that I'm going to see this week, the fact that he's playing this damn good in his late 30s isn't like, oh, he's setting the tone for those after him to play until... No, that's greatness personified, and they're playing that long because they're legends. There's a very good chance that Kirk Cousins is either the same guy again or not as good. There's a lot of quarterbacks that hit a wall around this age, 35, 36, 37. Ben Roethlisberger can tell you all about it. So we talked on this program ad nauseum about my desire, probably your desire, to identify a guy for the future. Yes, they drafted Jaren Hall, but he's 25 years old. By the time he's ready to start for the Vikings, he'll be 26 or 27, and I'm not sure that some fifth-round guy from BYU he's going to take the scepter and be the clear-cut plan at QB1. And there's nothing else. It's Nick Mullins. You're not going to trust him with the franchise. He can patch over somebody else. But the single most important, essential, crucial, long-term question facing the Vikings right now has not been addressed, at least fully. It is who is the quarterback after Cousins, because he is old by football purposes, and there is nobody. You had a chance to sign up for the Will Levis experience with the 23rd pick. You could have got Hendon Hooker if you really wanted him, or traded into the second round to get Hooker. But in terms of making an early round draft splash at quarterback, the Vikings did zilch. And with an aging quarterback on the final year of his contract, it felt a little strange. So either they are enamored with Jaren Hall. They don't care about my little fifth-round histrionic speech. He's going to be good no matter what. Great. If that's what they feel, then prove me wrong that he's going to be... Like I kid you not. In the last 25 years, guys drafted in the fifth round or later are Tom Brady and then guys like Tyrod Taylor. There are no exceptions. It's Brady, the GOAT, and then Ryan Fitzpatrick and Derek Anderson and those types of players. Yeah, you could point to undrafted guys like Tony Romo and Kurt Warner. Great. But if you're using round 5 as a solution at quarterback, it is a true lottery ticket. And therefore, glancing down at the depth chart with an age 35 quarterback around the bend, there is nothing else. So either Kwesi has this plan where he's going to go get Kyler Murray, trade for him next offseason, or Cousins will skedaddle to the 49ers, because I'm almost positive that's where he goes in free agency, if he indeed hits free agency. And then you're looking at the draft saying, well, we got to get somebody no matter what. And you kind of feel like you're in a Christian Ponder situation where you're drafting just to draft because you need a quarterback. A lot can change between now. Cousins could still be extended. I think based on, he was asked, what was it, last week? What are you going to do about free agency? It's right around the corner, sir. And he's like, well, I don't want to leave. That's a no-brainer. I want to earn the right to stay here. Right after the draft, Kwesi Adolphus said, Kirk Cousins doesn't need to prove anything to me. We had contract talks, and sometimes during contract talks, the best thing to do is let's talk about this later. Sounds like something I'd say to my kid, or my daughter when she was younger. I'd say that to her a lot. There could be a path to a Cousins extension that would tie him to the organization through the end of 2024. It seems more likely now that they don't have an heir apparent at quarterback unless they genuinely love Jaren Hall to death. So, in order, win alas, do the Justin Jefferson contract extension get done and TJ Hawkinson? The next one is, what are we going to do if Brian Flores is a one and done? Are we really going to go just install a new defense every year like we did with Zimmer in the offense? We saw how that worked. And then finally, the long-term plan at quarterback is up in the air. I really didn't think it would be up in the air after the draft. I thought they would either get Levis at 23, which I wouldn't have loved, but at least they would have loved it, and that's the important part. But tying yourself to a fifth-round heir apparent usually doesn't translate to success. So those are the three. I'll talk to you guys and gals in 6 days on VikesNow. That'll be Monday. Skol, baby.